Hello and welcome to yet another video from Kylie and myself around processes and software asset management. Today we're going to be looking at the maintain a supported software catalogue process, and this really is about, as it says, maintaining that definitive list of software that is required to run the IT estate.
So a few months ago we did an entire session on the software catalogue. So this is about maintaining it, keeping it up to date, and although it's not included in the process itself, I think we might be useful for us to spend a few minutes talking about how you create it in the first place if you don't have one.
Just as a refresher, I suppose. Yes.
Yeah. So for most organisations, the software catalogue is the record of what software is allowed on their estate. If you recall from our previous session, we've got a software catalogue and then an application catalogue, because applications can include multiple softwares. There's a service catalogue, which is the services you provide to the business. And then there's that broader technology framework, which is all the technology and how it knits together to provide services. So we are specifically focused on the software that is allowed, the software titles that are allowed to be on our estate and the status of those software titles. So there's a lot of things that can drive change. So first of all is just time. As time goes on, software gets older, it gets upgraded, it might get patched, there might be new versions coming along that we need, and then we need to get rid of the older software, or we decide we don't want it on the organisation anymore. So really the software catalogue is central also to tracking software throughout its life cycle and helping us understand what decisions we will need to take about that software as a result of where it is through its life cycle.
Yeah, so it's particularly relevant and useful if you do want to adopt such things as an N-1 installation policy.
Explain what that means, Rory.
So N is the current version of any given software, or the latest and greatest version. Most organisations don't want to be bleeding edge, but they're happy to be cutting edge. So being an N-1 means that you're happy to install the prior current version. Let another company take all the patches and hotfixes and grief that it comes from running the latest version, sit back 6 months, sit back 12 months, whatever the sort of refresh cycle is on a given title, and run your organisation from that list accordingly.
So other reasons why we might change the categorisation of a piece of software is because we've decided to rationalise our estate, and we've decided to standardise on one particular title, and therefore we're going to get rid of all the other titles that do the same function.
So we've got the packaging process as well, so something new has come in. We've decided that actually the packaging went well, we're happy to run with the packaged installation, so we need to update the data and update the record of that given software title to the catalogue, so we can write in where are our uninstall locations, our file uninstallers, what is the name of that file uninstaller if it's on-premise software then at that point.
And just the simple fact that actually we're allowed to install that software now. Yeah, simple as that, you know. So in our schema, and you do not have to do this, but these are what we would suggest you start off with. We would say that you should categorise, or can categorise software into 5 categories. So the current one, the one that you're using at the moment, we would call our standard category. So that would be our N-1. The N, the new piece of software coming along that you're testing and deciding whether you want it on the estate or not, is your emerging software standard. So as the organisation decides that they're going to consider using a piece of software or consider upgrading or whatever, then you might enter it into your catalogue as an emerging standard, but not so, only to be used for testing purposes, for instance, might be a criteria. If you have an exception standard, that would be because for some reason a specific part of the organisation can't use the standard product, so they need to use a different product. And then the final category of software in use is your legacy products. So these are your N-2, for instance. These are the software that you were using, but now you want to migrate away from it and in favour of something new, or in favour of, you know, like we said, to standardise on a particular piece of software, and you want to get rid of the others, you'd categorise those as legacy. So the legacy software you're allowed to have on your estate, but you would absolutely avoid installing new software unless you had defined an exception, in which case it would become a legacy exception. The other software category, of course, is your retired software.
Mm-hmm.
And you want to keep track of that in your software catalogue so that when people come along and say,
give me Office 97.
you can say,
now.
no, it's been retired, and
Go
you've got
away.
the record there. Or if somebody wants an obscure piece of software that's been through the process and the senior management team or the techies have said, no, we definitely don't want that on the estate, then you can say, no,
Yeah.
that was not approved, so you're not allowed to have that on the estate as well. Whether you would call that retired or whether you might say not approved or whatever, use the categories that work for you, but basically you do need a software category that says, no, it's not on the estate, we don't want it here.
And that goes back to, as well, when it comes to using the catalogue to support your request process, why it's so valuable to offer views.
Yeah.
Have user profiles that permit views of given software. Practically, I can't think of why anybody requesting software would need access to the software that has been earmarked as retired or to be deleted.
Yeah. And this is not just about end user software either. For instance, you might have an architect, a solutions architect, who's doing a design for an application which they need to make a choice of database technologies.
Mm-hmm.
Well, actually, the software catalogue can say, no, we're not going to install Oracle unless we absolutely can help it. Our standard database software is SQL or whatever, but in this particular circumstance, Oracle is an exception standard, so therefore you can use it as long as you tick these boxes. So it's not just about end user software either. It's a really powerful thing to be used also for projects and new applications and sort of as things are introduced into the organisation as well.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah. So when we drive a change in category, so there'll be things which drive that change from a standard to a legacy or sort of an emerging back to standard because we've now approved it, so it's now a standard piece of software. That then has to trigger certain actions. So for instance, if we're now going to deploy an emerging standard, has become a standard, then we might want to deploy it more widely, so we need to, go through the software deployment process. If we have decided that something's legacy, then we might want to actually start removing it and go to the software removal process. We also need to make sure that we're connecting the use of our software categories with our procurement processes. So for instance, even though we might still have a particular piece of software on the estate, because it's legacy, we may decide that we don't need to support it anymore, and we can save a bit of money by cancelling the renewal. Because we know it's very stable, we've not had any support issues, and we're going to get rid of it soon anyway, so let's cancel the subscription. So the important thing really is to use this process to track software through its life cycle and make sure that the actions that need to happen off the back of those life cycle changes are triggered.
And again, just to put a bow around this, is once those changes have actually been made in the catalogue, is to refresh the catalogue to the business then at that point as well. So they're working with the latest and greatest information when it comes to requesting software.
So just quickly, if you don't have a software catalogue, what would you recommend people do?
Get in touch with ITAM Intelligence or some charter for consultancy. Sorry, did I say that out loud? I don't know. There is a white paper that you can download off the SAM Charter website that is a great starter for 10 on actually composing a catalogue and just understanding what data fields you need in and around the catalogue to support the software through its life cycle in the organisation.
And the starting point is really your existing software. Start small. Start thinking about what software shouldn't be on the estate, what should be blacklisted.
Mm-hmm.
Think about where it is in its life cycle and what actions that might drive. But also, above all, this process really is owned by the enterprise architects. It's yet another process that, although we are responsible for it, the responsibility is very firmly, generally with software asset management, it's owned, the accountability sits with the enterprise architects. So do make sure that you work with them and recognise that the Supported Software Catalogue is just a view of the overall enterprise technology framework of your organisation.
Okay, that's our 10-minute marker. We've got
That
to go.
is. Yes, so thank you very much. See you later.
Take care.